Released in the UK on September 30th, 2005, The Dream Begins follows the story of Santiago Munez, a young man with a rough background who is offered a trial with one of England's top association football clubs, and the twists and turns that follow. The film stars Kuno Becker as Santiago Munez, I've never heard of him either, Anna Friel, who I at least recognise, Stephen Delane, who has been in Game of Thrones but honestly who hasn't been at this point, and Marcel Uriz, who has starred in stuff which sounds like it would be way too highbrow for the likes of me. Director Danny Cannon, who has worked on the likes of CSI and Gotham, claims that the film was a labour of love and that he wanted to take the excitement of a match day and put those emotions into the film. Let's see how well that went, shall we? Yes. Yes, we will. We begin in a barrio in Mexico where a young Santiago is having a jolly old time having a kickabout in the streets. He is shown to be exceptionally talented despite his tender age. Either that or his mates are just generally terrible at football. This jovial mood is interrupted by Santiago being awoken in the dead of night by his father, who tells him to quickly pack his things as the family are going to attempt to cross the border into America. A confused Santiago does what he is told, and the family set off with a number of others trying their luck to get into the US. Upon reaching the border, the police have been alerted and the family scramble to get over the fence, so much so that Santiago has to leave his precious football behind. Fast forward a few years later and it seems that Santiago and his family have hit the proverbial jackpot, as he can be seen relaxing in a pool outside of a massive California mansion. But alas, this is all a swerve, as it turns out that he and his father are the gardeners who attend to the aforementioned massive California mansion. From there, Santi, I'm going to call him this from now on because I cannot be arse riding Santiago every time, goes to play for his local team, where he cannot play without shin pads, so fashions some out of cardboard, which I'm fairly certain aren't FIFA approved, although I think that's the least of FIFA's worries for the past 2 years. Satire! Again, he shows himself to be a standout and scores the most what non-football fans think a goal looks like goal in history. During another game, he shows his quality once again, however this time it's in front of former scout Glenn Foy, who happens to be there watching his grandson's game because of coincidence. He pulls Santi aside after his game and tells him that he sees something very special in Santi. Glenn says that he will attend his next game along with a sports agent he knows. You know what, it really makes me wonder where these lads were when I played junior football, although if a strange man came up to me when I was a youngster and told me he could make me a star, I have a feeling the whole thing would end up as a Crime Watch reconstruction. Moving on, Santi tells his father, who dismisses his ambitions and comes across as bitter as a field full of lemon trees. Before the game, Santi is shown to have asthma. Remember that, it's really important. He shines again as he scores that hashtag banger that goes hashtag top bins because he's hashtag lit and hashtag. Glenn informs him that the agent he told him about didn't show up, leaving Santi heartbroken. To combat this, Glenn makes a phone call to Eric Dornhelm, the fictional manager of Newcastle United, and someone who Glenn used to work under before Dornhelm fired him. He asks if he can get Santi a trial at the club, and Dornhelm agrees if Glenn allows him to go back to sleep due to the time difference. Glenn then finds Santi and his family as they are leaving church and tells him that if he can get to England, Newcastle United will give him a trial. However, Santi's dad is still resistant and essentially tells Santi to give up on his dreams, the big meanie. Santi works as hard as he can to earn the money required to fly to England for his chance at stardom. However, his father steals the money he has earned to buy a truck of his own, with the intention of starting a gardening business with Santi, who, as you can imagine, is rather miffed at the idea that his father stole all his cash, and subsequently his dream of becoming a professional footballer. Through the power of editing, we are magically transported to England, Newcastle to be precise, St James's Park to be even more precise, as we see new signing Gavin Harris being unveiled. It's sad that even in a fictional world, Newcastle still can't break their own transfer record. During the press conference, Gavin reveals himself to be quite the arrogant sort, claiming that he'll single-handedly lead them to European qualification. Back in LA, Santi's grandmother gives him the required tickets to get himself to England for his trial because she believes in him, unlike his father. He lands in England and makes contact with Glenn, who lets him stay with him whilst he's there. After chatting with some of the locals and coming to the realisation that black pudding is nothing more than a giant scab, Santi is taken to meet Eric Dornhelm, who has completely forgotten about the conversation himself and Glenn had. Still, he instructs Glenn to get Santi over to the training ground to see what he can do. The weather is terrible, which is rare for the northeast of England, and Santi performs miserably, besides one piece of skill which he demonstrates. He's targeted specifically by Barry Rankin, a veteran whose best years are behind him. Santi's miserable time is compounded by him slipping over whilst taking a free kick, and is subsequently told to hit the showers, metaphorically speaking of course, as he won't be coming back tomorrow. Glenn however goes to bat for Santi, claiming that he was jet lagged and that,
you know, he's never seen mud before.
Now hang on a minute, hang on a bloody minute. I am no professor of precipitation, but I'm pretty sure that neither LA nor Mexico are exempt from rainfall. Now maybe if he had said he's never experienced playing in that amount of rain or mud before, then fair enough. But no, he said that he's never seen mud before, and that is utterly ludicrous. Sorry, I just genuinely couldn't let that line of dialogue go. Although this bizarre logic seems to work on Dornhelm, who agrees to extend Santi's trial by a month. Santi pushes himself to prove that he deserves to be there, during which time he captures a glimpse of the first team training, the likes of Alan Shearer, Jermaine Genius, Lee Bowyer. God almighty. Anywho, Santi is sent for a medical where he meets nurse Roz Harmison for the first time, and when he's asked if he has any condition that would affect his breathing, he lies to her and says no. Remember when I said that was important? Yeah, this is one of the bits where it's important. One of Santi's new teammates takes him out for a night on the town where Santi, surprise surprise, bumps into Roz and the two seem to hit it off. Back in training, Dornhelm sees that Santi has individual talent, but is selfish in regards to not passing to his teammates when he has the chance. After a quick Luke and Yoda moment, I don't know if that reference is accurate, Dornhelm teaches Santi a lesson in teamwork and how important it is to work together. This seems to have an effect on Santi as Dornhelm sees him stay late after training to practice, which convinces him to give Santi a start in a reserve game against Manchester United. He phones his grandmother to tell her the good news, but his father is still resentful that Santi left them all. Man, this dude's a real killjoy. Before the game, the dick from earlier breaks Santi's inhaler, causing Santi to perform terribly in the game and be subbed off. His coach asks him what's wrong, but after Santi refuses to tell him, he tells Santi that he has to let him go. He goes to see Roz to tell him that he lied to her on his medical about his asthma and that he's going back to LA because he feels like he's let everyone down. Not before he and Roz share a cheeky smooch though. Oh, I hope they show this film after 9 o'clock. Back with Gavin, who has had a thoroughly rigorous sleepover and is late for training. He leaves to find that the wheels have been stolen off his car due to plot reasons and he needs to get a taxi. Conveniently, the same taxi that Santi is going to the airport in. Gavin says to come with him to the training ground and explains what happened with Santi's asthma at the reserve game, and Dornhelm once again gives him another chance. Santi plays in the next reserve game against QPR, scores a goal and wins over the dick from earlier. Quite the productive day he has. He also scores in another reserve game against Middlesbrough, making me wonder why Match of the Day doesn't film reserve games given the quality of goals that have been on display. After showing Roz his new gaff and his new housemate, Santi is told that he is in the first team squad for the game against Fulham and will start on the bench. A number of fans are seen watching the game in a bar and hang on, is that Brian Johnson? Well anyway, Santa's dad is back in black and walks into the bar where the game is playing and begins to watch. Hell's bells, Santi is told that he and his Adidas product placement are coming on. Santi's dad sees him on TV and declares to the bar that Santi is his son. Santi immediately goes on a mazy run and wins a penalty for Newcastle. Gavin steps up to take it and after being asked, "Are you ready?" he shoots to thrill and wins the game for Newcastle. Takes big balls, does that. Despite exploding onto the scene like TNT, just one more, Dornhelm still isn't happy that Santi didn't pass to one of his teammates who had a free shot on goal. After the game, Santi and Gavin meet some famous faces who would rather be anywhere than in this film, but they love money, so why not? The likes of David Beckham, Raoul and Zinedine Bloody Zidane praise Santi on his performance. His 2-minute cameo at the end of the game, my god. Gavin wants to go somewhere else and so the two make their way to a nightclub where Santi and Gavin are surrounded by several lovely girls and the paps snap several compromising photos of the two of them which end up on the front page of the newspaper, The Sun. But only Santi's face can be clearly seen. When Dornhelm confronts him and demands to know who the other player was, Santi refuses to tell him. Funnily enough, Roz is none too pleased either. This forces Santi to talk to Gavin about his life choices, but Gavin doesn't want to hear it and kicks Santi out. A perfectly rational response, I think you'd all agree. During a training session, Santi receives a phone call and it is revealed that his father has died of a heart attack whilst at work. Don't know why I sounded so chipper there. So Santi decides to abandon his dream and fly back home, despite having a contract to honour, and I'm sure the club would have given him compassionate leave considering his dad had just died, but sure, let's just go with the drama, why not? Just as an aside, how the hell did Santi actually get signed in the first place? He would need a work permit which he would not fulfill the criteria for, or would have to go to a tribunal which would have to determine that he is of such quality that a work permit would be granted, which would obviously be highly unlikely considering how many chances he's had to be given to prove himself. Ah sure, but why let facts get in the way of a mediocre story, eh? Gavin tells Dornhelm that he was the one in the photo and that Santi didn't even want to go to the club in the first place. Well done Gav, aren't you growing? Santi decides not to fly back to LA and instead stay, as he says that his father made him think that he needed an excuse for failure and that he took away his self-belief, blah 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 blah. Either way mate, that is pretty harsh not flying back for your dad's funeral. But we need to move the story along, so we move on to Sandy hitting free kicks inside St James's Park at night. I have several questions, mainly how the arse did he get in at that time of the day, and why hasn't the groundsman battered him for wrecking his pitch when Newcastle are coming into a vital period of the season? Unless Sandy can use his previous gardening experience to fix it, I don't know. Also, Sandy's technique is super odd. Like, I know I'm not one to criticise anyone's football ability, but he looks so awkward in the way he kicks a ball. It may have had something to do with the fact that Kuno Becker didn't really play football before taking the role, but still it stands out a bit. Also, notice how he's taking these shots with his right foot. Remember that, it's important. Like earlier when he sees Sandy staying late after training, Dornhelm finds him and tells Sandy that he'll be starting the next and final game of the season against Liverpool at St James's. The big day finally arrives and we see Sandy's shirt hanging in the dressing room next to Jean-Alain Boumsong. You can make up your own jokes about that one because I refuse to eat such low-hanging fruit. Turns out the whole gang has come to see the game as Glenn and Roz are both in the stands. Sandy, alongside his trusty product placement, take to the St James's turf for the first time. In another severe case of the coincidences, Sandy's grandmother and younger brother go to watch the game in the same bar that his dad watched him play in, unbeknownst to them. Newcastle take the lead via the luscious locks of Big Gav, and things look good for Sandy and the lads. That is until Liverpool go 2-up in a matter of minutes through, apparently, Igor Bishkan and Milan Baros. You know the likes of Gerrard was playing at this time, it's perfectly more feasible that he'd score a brace than Igor Bishkan and Milan Baros separately scoring. In the second half, Sandy goes on one of those trademark Munez runs, there has been one at this point, and finally acquires the teamwork achievement as he passes to Big Gav, who gets a big goal, which brings the sides level. As the game enters the last minute, Newcastle get a free kick, and it's Sandy who steps up to take it. Now, remember that Sandy is a right-footed player, but he inexplicably takes this, the most important kick of the season and his entire goddamn life, with his left foot. Now it could be because they used Laurent Robert's goal for this sequence where he hit it with his left foot, but to hell with facts, I have complaining about minor details to do. In true Mighty Ducks fashion, he scores and Newcastle win the game. Huzzah! Sandy's grandmother exclaims that he is her grandson, and our boy Brian tells her that they met his father when he turned up at the same bar to watch the Fulham game. Once the final whistle blows, Glenn runs down to pitch side, which I'm sure he's not allowed to do, to tell Sandy that his grandmother is on the phone, where she reveals that his dad saw the game against Fulham. Sorry, my mistake. And Sandy is overcome to find out that his dad finally saw him play. He responds to the news with a hearty yeah! And we fade to black. So there we have it, goal! Exclamation mark. The Dream Begins from 2005. Honestly, it'll score no points for originality, but I do believe there are some shining lights here. Sure, the rags to riches underdog story has been done to absolute death and has been executed significantly better, even in films of the same genre, but despite that, I feel that Kuno Becker brings a weird charm and likability to the role of Santiago, even if his performance is relatively middling. Having a film about football in 2005 was a bit of a rarity, and it definitely holds up better than the likes of Green Street, as well as creating a story that's not just about the sport of football, but about the life of someone involved in it. Of course it's a highly dramatised life for the sake of selling tickets, but it's nice that they were able to include that element. All in all, it's an inoffensive, cliche-ridden, family-friendly romp that has a surprising amount of charm underneath its generic, overplayed plot. So for me, goal! Exclamation mark. The Dream Begins lands solidly in mid-table mediocrity. Not pushing for Europe, but in no danger of a relegation dogfight. So that's it for this, our first film review on the channel. If you did enjoy it, be sure to hit that like button, click subscribe, and turn on notifications. Thank you so much for watching, and we will see you in the next one.